Hello and welcome back to Trigger Smart. I know many of you probably saw Baron Coleman's video on Thursday where he was talking about revisiting the idea of the necklace, possibly, being a strange focus for everyone, not just the people that are investigating this, but also people on like TPUSA side and some others, and also technically the FBI too, because they were talking about it and they were looking for it. So I found that all very interesting, but I just want to look at it from the point of view of what's historically been shown up to this point. Including some things that, I hear some people recently talking about the fact that cavitation from the shot couldn't break the necklace. And there may be some truth to that, depending on the length of the necklace and that kind of stuff, and the force, how fast it happens, what caliber it was, where it hits. But obviously, ballistic gel is not a one-to-one medium for human flesh. So let's bring all that evidence together and see what might be possible and what's maybe not possible. This video here is from Range Dave Rowe, and this is when he went out and went to recreate his shot in from the right, which would be like up above the Hall of Flags on the far like right end of it behind Charlie. And he did this test, and I'm not specifically talking about whether his theory and the location was correct or not, which by the way, Audio Freak agreed with the general location coming from his audio analysis. But based on what I've seen, it looks like cavitation, at least in this case, can cause the necklace to break. And I'll show you from a couple different points of view, but this is just Range Dave Rowe's one.
This one again shows that cavitation. If the shot had been better placed and the trajectory was more in line with what happened on 910, this cavitation that you see right here would have 100% puffed this shirt out as we saw on 910. And from this angle, we actually catch the bullet passing through and impacting the ground over here.
Now you'll see the chain broke. So he had a necklace with a pendant or a cross or something on it, and then from the cavitation itself, from a shot to the back of the head going through the neck. So this isn't even through the chest or directly through the neck here. It's way up here in this area. But you can see, actually I think it was even higher than that, but you can see here that chain is broken and it flies off.
You can actually see why they were so eager to pave over the ground afterwards, because clearly there was a pass through. And
you see how much force. See, there's the cross right there, and you can see the two sides of the chain still kind of flapping around, but you can see how much force there was on that chain, enough to snap it from the cavitation. Now again, when you have flesh and muscles and connective tissue and bone and things like that in a human, it might not be quite this dramatic. If it's anything even close to this, even if it's half of that, it still might be enough to break this chain. And then we have Dr. Martinson here over at Peak Prosperity, and he did a similar type of test. They went much more in depth against like pork shoulders and things like that, trying to prove that basically a 30-06 is not going to be stopped by a neck, and that it goes right through meat and bone. But what I want to show you here is they do some tests where they shoot into this. It's basically from like the shoulders up. It's the shoulders and the neck basically of a ballistic dummy, and they have a chain on there as well, and that also breaks in their tests.
The observed behaviors of Charlie's chain breaking and his t-shirt perfectly match a high-speed round coming in and creating.
So again, look at all that cavitation, right? Obviously, this is, again, ballistic gel. This is not one-to-one for human flesh in the way the body is, but it gives you an idea of how much force is in there.
Boom. Look at that
chain's broken.
Huge overpressure. Look at the t-shirt.
The chain's back here flying. So again,
shirt flying out. Hang on. I'm going to stop that at number 3 real quick.
So you can see right there, there's the chain broken as well. So in both of these different events, both using ballistic gel in 2 separate instances, 2 different types of dummies. I don't know if they made it themselves and molded it or if they bought it from somewhere, but it goes to show you that in both cases, a shot through the neck, in Range Dave Rowe's case, was kind of more through like the lower part of the skull. But in both cases, shooting that high up still caused cavitation enough in the neck to break the chain. I don't know exactly how long the chains were, but they weren't tight around the neck. They were hanging down near the chest. So that goes to show you that in these 2 instances, 2 separate people testing 2 different ways, different ammunition and all that kind of stuff, they got the same result of the chain breaking from the shot. I just wanted to point that out. And I'm not going to show the video of Charlie for obvious reasons. Everyone's seen it already a million times. But you can see clearly when he gets hit, that the chain goes whipping around his head, right? And it snaps off on the right side. If you look really close, like in the Charles McClintock Wilson photos, the end of the chain almost looks like either it broke by the clasp, which the clasp should be in the back, right? So if it broke in the front and goes flying around, you would assume that the clasp is in the back, but that's not always the case. Obviously, it can work its way around as you move around. But what I want to say is that the way the chain looked, it almost appeared as though the chain broke right in the middle of it. And I want to show you here because I have a very similar chain here Mine is slightly thinner than his and definitely shorter, but it's the same type of weave, the same type of metal. So it's almost like a tube, and it is very, very strong. This right here, this is not breaking. Okay. So this is a thinner, weaker chain than his. So if it's built anything like this one, then that would tell you that it was a very, very strong chain. So for it to break right in the middle would take extreme force. And I think that, you know, what we've seen with Dr. Martinson and Range Day Bro with their experiments and it snapping the chain, you know, I don't know where it broke on those chains. I don't know if it broke at the clasp or what. But if you look at the Charles McClintock Wilson photo where they're carrying him to the vehicle and you can see the chain hanging down, there's blood on it and stuff. There's no blood in this video, but you can see pretty clearly it looks like it like kind of shattered or broke right in the middle of the chain. And here we have a little bit more about what Baron Coleman was talking about and kind of, like I said, revisiting.
We will not see a bullet escape the back of his neck. That was debated before she came out on September 19th. A lot of people were saying, oh, he was actually hit from behind. Maybe he was hit from up here in the stairwell behind his right. Maybe he was shot from somebody standing over Dan Flood's shoulder. There was a lot of question because this wound on his neck, a lot of people thought looked like an exit wound. Boom. You see the moment of impact, the moment of something happening. And you already see in these first couple of frames the necklace swinging wildly way up over his head.
Now, I want to point out the difference between this and what Dr. Martinson and Range Day Bro showed. In their images of the slow-mo footage from them, you can see the chain after a couple of frames, then you kind of see the chain show up. In this, it almost seems like the instant that whatever the energetic event was, gunshot or whatever it may be, the chain flies up immediately and it's already behind his head. So you're talking about some major energy release there. And it does seem, based on, again, you know, all these videos and what I've seen looking around, it does seem as though the chain broke in the middle. It doesn't seem like it broke at the clasps, for example.
You let it roll a little more, look, you can see it actually curls over in on itself. Now, the reason I want to show you this is if you were to unwind that, you're going to get a very long chain. If the chain broke right here, so the wound is over here. If the chain broke here or here, it would only be like this long, hanging over his neck. But if the chain broke all the way down here, then what you have is something this long above his neck as it swings back wildly over his neck.
And that's a really good point. So what are we talking about? What could actually cause that to happen? If you're talking about cavitation from the neck from a gunshot, whether it came from Range Day Bro's side or from the front or whatever it may be, is there enough of this expansion to make it snap down on the longer side to fly up? It's just, you know, thinking about these kind of things and walking through it, you know, it doesn't really make sense. If, for example, if it broke naturally, you would think that it would break at the clasp at the weakest point. But even in the Range Day Bro and Dr. Martinson videos, it does appear, at least on camera, it does appear that it broke somewhere in the middle. It just kind of snapped in half. And I've personally done 3 other videos on this. I did Kirk assassination neck wound, not from a bullet or explosion. This was kind of the introduction of this theory. So during the original investigation of a lot of this stuff, I was going through a bunch of different theories, and someone named Charlie Kirk, who was anonymous still to this day, this person reached out to me, and I did this first video, neck wound not from a bullet or explosion. And the theory there was that the pendant or the cross or one of the other pendants attached to the cross flew up into his neck from the force of whatever happened. So whether explosion or gunshot or whatever it may be, something caused enough force to cause that pendant to go up and then hit him in the neck. And, you know, John Bray and other people have shown, you know, some images and things where he thinks it's like the circuit board to the microphone, for example. But Charlie Kirk thought it was the cross, and maybe the pendant or something on the cross went up into his neck. And that's why we see such a strange wound, such a strange shape to it. And even like the delay and the blood coming out. And then, you know, then it goes back down. And that's what we see. Another interesting thing about it is, if you look at some of the images of him after he's hit and he's slumped to the side, you can actually see the chain still hanging there. So he originally thought, Charlie Kirk, he or she, originally thought that maybe the pendant was like embedded in the neck. And the reason why they say that is because several sources had said, including Andrew Colvett, that the ambulance crew, the EMTs, had to rip, quote, they had to rip or tear the chain from him. Okay? Now, this is a chain that's already broken. We can see that instantly when he gets hit or that energetic event happens.
There's a powerful photo of Charlie's wife, Erica, holding, looks like a cross necklace out of the window to his supporters. Can you tell us about that necklace?
Yeah, that was actually a necklace that Erica gave Charlie when they were dating. And she said, well, you're a Christian, why don't you wear a cross? And he said, I don't know, I'm not a jewelry guy. And something happened where he was pressed and he felt the weight of the world on him, and he put that cross on and he never took it off again until he was assassinated.
So just a couple of details there. I'm not speculating. I'm not making stuff up. So it sounds like Erica convinced him to start wearing a necklace. He didn't wear them before. He wasn't a big jewelry guy. So from the very beginning of the relationship, she entrusted this necklace to him. Okay. And Andrew Kovitz saying that it was kind of like his armor, I guess. So he would put it on when, he said he kept it on at all times, which is another interesting detail we'll look at here in a second. But he basically wore it at all times to kind of protect himself, spiritually from things or whatever it may be. Then we have Erica here talking about and showing the actual cross and pendants that he was supposedly wearing that day with his chain. And it does look like it's the same chain. As far as the pendant itself, we didn't really get to see them that well, but it does seem like it's a match.
I asked him, I was like, why don't you wear a cross? He's like, why? You say you're a Christian, but you don't wear a cross. He's like, I don't know. I'm not a jewelry guy. And I was like, I understand. So for his first birthday present, I got him this cross. And then throughout time, I would always add different medals to it. And so he loved St. Michael. And so, every time he'd put this on, he just felt like it was his armor. Yeah. It's really sweet.
So very sweet indeed. But it's interesting that he said he didn't like jewelry and didn't wear it, and she got him one anyway and kind of forced it on him. I'm not saying there's anything nefarious there, but I find that very interesting.
For him, that night, he was so excited. I mean, he just was like, I can't wait. It's going to be the best. And he got up around 2:45, 3-ish to go into the kitchen to grab a snack. And our daughter had woke up around that same time. We live in a small space, so you can kind of hear when everyone's kind of shuffling around.
And you can see here, if you haven't actually seen this interview before, she's wearing his chain. I don't know if she's wearing the cross and the pendants. I would assume that she probably is, but she's wearing her necklace and cross, and you can see his necklace there. It's like I said, it's that kind of like weaved tube style. So it appears that she does have this with her everywhere, or seems to, at least for this, for example, she wore it for this interview.
So she came to our room and she stayed in our bed. And he always loved when Gigi slept in our bed because she's, little ones, they like curl up inside of you and like they're just nuzzled in. But you also know that it can be very acrobatic when a 3-year-old is in your bed and somehow their feet end up on your face. So I said, I want you to have a good night's sleep. Go ahead and sleep in her room. And I'll turn the air down so it's nice and cozy in there. And I just want you to get a good night's sleep so you can be amazing tomorrow. And so Gigi and I stayed in our room. And that morning he woke up super early and he came into our bedroom, into the bathroom, because that's where his wedding ring was and his necklace.
She's saying that, and people have talked about this in depth. So basically the night before, he wakes up early. His daughter goes into their room. He goes to get a snack. His daughter's hanging out with her. She says for Charlie to go sleep in the daughter's room, which I assume is a much smaller bed. I don't know. I mean, obviously they had money. They had millions of dollars. So they could have, she could have had a queen or a king or something. But I would assume sleeping in a child's bed would not be as comfortable as sleeping in your own bed. But obviously that's just my opinion there. But the main takeaway from this is that his ring and his necklace were in the bathroom, which that doesn't seem odd to me because, when I take off, like if I wear rings or my necklace or anything like that, or especially women will have all kinds of jewelry, like in either an official jewelry case or just like on the counter in their bathroom. So that doesn't seem odd to me, but that does mean that he did have it off for a period of time before he picked it up and left in the morning. So a lot of people have said and speculated, and they're alleging that maybe she swapped it with something else, maybe nefarious or something similar. I don't know. Obviously, we don't have any proof of that, but that idea is out there. So back to this person, Kelly Kukul, that contacted me. They got so detailed in what they sent me. It almost gave me like the vibes that maybe they went to like a university and they were like a medical student or something similar. But the takeaway was this person actually measured and did diagrams in depth of the necklace, where it seemed to have broken from, how much force it would take to break it, how much cavitation would be required, all this information. And that's in these other videos that I've done. This particular one is Kirk assassination dependent theory debate. So you can go back and watch that if you're interested in that. But I brought this up, this was what, 5 months ago? So this was like a month and a half after everything happened. And I mean, it goes super, super in depth. It goes super in depth. And I would highly recommend you go back and watch that because it gives you a lot more context to what this person saw. Now, their theory was that the pendant itself went into the neck, not necessarily that, or a portion of it went into the neck, not necessarily that it was the source of the energy, for example, but it does show you pretty in depth, like the length that it was, where it was hanging, how it looked, its position at all times. So that's interesting information if you think there's anything to this theory. So go ahead and go check that out. You can see things like here, you know, this person actually measured the length of the chain and how long it would be because it was actually hanging down. It seemed like it's hanging from his, you know, general neck area or collar area over his shirt and hanging down past his elbow. So this person actually went and took the time to measure all this stuff and do like little diagrams and things with it. So you get an idea of how long and how big this chain actually is and how far down it could hang based on its length. And it's very interesting. Back then, you know, obviously I showed this information because I let a bunch of different people come and share their theories and that kind of stuff. I'm not necessarily married to any one, but I thought this was very interesting because it was the only one that said that maybe the necklace had something to do with his actual death. Not necessarily that something energetic happened from it, but the fact that maybe from something happening, some other event, that the pendant or the cross went up into his neck and that caused the bleeding, which led to his ultimate death. So, of course, I had to do more research and see, were the explosives small enough that they could be the necklace or be the pendant or be the cross or somehow tied into the paint that's on it or something similar, right? Is there some kind of chemical or some kind of explosive that can be used in that manner? It says technically possible in terms of explosive volume alone, but no documented real-world cases exist. Plastic explosives like PETN are extremely powerful and dense. Just 3 to 6 grams occupies about the volume of a sugar cube or less. A custom-designed hollow pendant or cross, typical size 2 to 4 centimeters tall, could theoretically hold this plus a tiny detonator, battery, and trigger circuit if expertly engineered. Obviously, there's no proof that this is what happened, and I'm not saying this is what happened, but based on a theoretical search on Grok, it's saying that it is technically possible, and a pendant or a cross specifically the size of his, they could put a detonator, battery, and trigger circuit into that. It says, however, searches for real incidents turned up 0 confirmed cases of explosives hidden in small jewelry pendants or cross necklaces used in attacks. Jewelry-shaped bombs in searches are either novelty items, art made from bomb scrap, or video game references, not functional explosives. The closest real precedent is much larger collar bombs, which were used in Colombia, and they use PETN. It says no jewelry pendant cases and expert analysis of micro-explosives. So historically, it seems like this is something that's not been done, or at least not documented widely. And then I asked if something that size could be enough explosive to cause a dangerous explosion. Yes, for dangerous, lethal injury to the wearer, but not for large in the sense of like a massive blast radius or something like that, which obviously we wouldn't expect. Small charges of PETN or similar military-grade plastic explosives are highly energetic. In the 2004 pager attacks, 3 to 6 grams per device produced blasts strong enough to cause severe injuries, especially to the face, hands, eyes, and neck, and some when detonated while worn or held close. Experts noted the blasts were calibrated to mainly harm the holder without heavily affecting bystanders. A 6-gram charge has been described as enough blast to blast a hole in thick metal. A necklace pendant with even 1 to 3 grams would be extremely dangerous if detonated against the skin or neck, potentially fatal due to blast, fragmentation, or shrapnel effects. It would not create a large area effect explosion like a grenade or a bomb. So it's saying that there could be fragmentation. And we know that there was a bullet fragment that they can't match directly back to the gun. So this is just a thought experiment based on information from the past, from when Charlie Kirk contacted me, and then also Baron Coleman bringing this back up and asking some more questions about it. But one huge question I had, because I've thought of this before, a lot of people have thought about the necklace. I was like, okay, so even if you could put explosive there, say it's a hollow cross, for example, or even I've done some searches in the past to see if the actual necklace itself, if it could also have some of that explosive in it. And technically it's like, yeah, it could, right? So there's ways to do that and mask it with enough power to cause major issues, right? So I don't think that's really the question. The question I had was, can it be remote triggered? Is there enough room, or would it be too obvious to Charlie, for example, if he's used to this necklace every day and he never took it off, according to Andrew Colvett, except for that, maybe he put it in the bathroom every night or something, like Erica was saying. So if he had this necklace, would he notice if someone had swapped something? So say if someone swapped a pendant, or they swapped the cross, or even the chain itself, if that was swapped out, would he be able to notice? So I started digging in a little bit further, and it says, I said, can explosives be triggered remotely, and can they be inside necklace pendants without someone noticing? Remote triggering, yes, proven. In the pager attacks, a specific coded radio message was activated, and the circuit made it detonate. Modern microelectronics, tiny RF receivers, microcontrollers, and detonators make this feasible in small packages. A necklace could theoretically use similar tech. For example, a hidden RF trigger activated by a specific signal. Concealment in a necklace or pendant without noticing. Possible in theory, but unproven in practice and harder than pagers. So that's the real thing there, is to miniaturize this down to the point where it's not detectable by Charlie or anyone else who would handle his necklace. That is the very difficult part. Now, could they do that? I mean, the pagers I think they were actually set up like 10 years ago. So obviously the technology and stuff could have come a very long way. And we know things have been miniaturizing significantly. So is it theoretically possible? Probably. But we haven't seen any usage of that anywhere that we know of. And they have the theoretical stuff. If it's applied as new jewelry, then a person could definitely set it up that way, and then it wouldn't be detected, and then they could hand it to Charlie or someone else, and he would put it on and wouldn't be none the wiser. If you wore it daily, noticeable issues, extra weight, bulk, odd feel, or heat would likely alert the wearer unless perfectly engineered. So again, there's a lot of challenges to that. And pets, metal detectors, explosive sniffing dogs, or routine inspections would raise red flags. No public cases exist of this being done successfully with small pendants. Now, remember, in this case, if it was, theoretically, like some people say, swapped out the night before, then there wouldn't really, the pets thing, metal detectors and all that stuff wouldn't really be a thing, because he just took it while they were sleeping. He never said goodbye or anything. And then he was gone and he was on planes and doing his thing. So maybe there was no checks in between. So again, all this stuff is just theoretical. I'm just looking at this theory in general. I'm kind of revisiting it because originally, like when Charlie Kirk was talking about the pendant itself causing the neck wound, and since then there's been a lot more people running algorithms and software against this stuff, and it does seem like maybe it wasn't the necklace, maybe it could have been. I mean, it's so hard to tell, but I think overall, like plausibility overall of like, could this be possible in theory? Possibly. I mean, based on the research and stuff, it's possible, but it's also very difficult to miniaturize it that way and have it still be effective. And again, a lot of people still keep asking the same question, just like with the mic theory, is, where are the burns at? Now, again, we don't see close-up of Charlie at any point, so we don't know if there's burns. But the shirt itself wasn't burnt. You would expect a white shirt to definitely have some black spots and burns on it. And there's one gentleman, I don't remember his name, but he's on YouTube, and he did some like little mini tests of like a mic and held it up to the shirt. He held it under the shirt with a stick, and then he would detonate it. And you could see the black and soot and everything all over the white shirt, even from exploding on the inside. So that's one of the big problems that a lot of people see with this. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Do you think that this seems plausible? Do you think this is probable? Versus all the other theories, does this one hold any weight? I know a lot of people have suspected the necklace in some kind of way, if nothing else, just due to all the attention that the necklace got from the FBI, Erica Kirk, Andrew Colvett, Frank Turek even mentioned it, and supposedly he's the one that took it from the vehicle afterwards. But as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this around. And if you're looking for ways to help the channel, you can find links down in the description. And I'll see you on the next one.